Psychology Assignment 2, James McIntosh, DCF2B. Arousal. My own definition of arousal is how excited you are for the task ahead. It can have a positive or negative effect on performance. A reference definition of arousal. Arousal is referred to as a physiological state of alertness and anticipation that prepares the body for action. It is generally considered to be neutral because it is in itself neither positive nor negative. What causes arousal? There are many situations in sport that can cause arousal. One of these could be the crowd. In a match, the home team, you are the home team and your fans are getting behind you and cheering you on. This would increase arousal. Another example could be in rifle shooting. The environment you are in rifle shooting is very quiet, which could also increase arousal. The third situation is taking a penalty in the 90th minute to win the match. You are in a very high pressure situation and this could also increase arousal. The final situation could be going into a big derby match. The game would be highly anticipated and this could also increase arousal. Hull's dry theory. Hull's dry theory shows a positive correlation between arousal and performance, and this suggests that as arousal increases, so does performance. So low arousal would mean low performance, and high arousal would mean high performance. An example of this would be a rugby player. The higher arousal a rugby player gets, the better he performs. However, this is not seen to be 100% reliable, because in high concentration sports such as golf and darts, a high level of arousal would stop concentration and therefore affect the performance. The inverted U theory. The relationship in the inverted U theory between arousal and performance is curvature. This theory recognizes that there is a difference in levels of arousal, and too much arousal can damage performance. This theory states that as arousal increases, so does performance. However, there is a point called the optimum point of arousal, and once this level of arousal is hit, the player's performance will be at its highest. However, if the arousal still continues to increase after this point, the performance will start to decrease. An example of this could be a tennis player. As the player's arousal begins to increase, so does his performance. It continues with this until he hits his optimum level of arousal. This is where he will be playing at his highest level of performance. However, after this, his arousal level still continue to increase, so the player's performance decreases. Therefore, he will not be playing at his best. This recognizes the sports required for different levels of arousal. For example, the level of arousal in golf would need to be much lower than in football, because golf requires a high level of concentration and arousal, and this will damage performance if it gets too high. Novice versus elite. This theory suggests that different levels of performers can have different levels of arousal. This is because high level athletes can reach a much higher level of arousal before it begins to affect their performance, compared to a lower level athlete. This is because their skill level is much higher. An example of this could be two footballers. One of these is new to the sport, and one of these is at elite level. The higher level athlete would be able to get more aroused than the other footballer because his skills will be able to carry him through without letting the arousal affect his performance. However, the low level player will get highly aroused and they will not have the skill to continue up high performance, so his performance will drop much quicker. The catastrophe theory. This theory suggests that a decline in a player's performance isn't always gradual and can drop off quickly. This sudden drop in performance is due to a choke. A choke is when a player is in a high pressure situation and he lets the pressure get to him and he makes a mistake. On the graph, the player's performance starts to increase as so does his arousal. However, he gets it to a dangerously high arousal point where he is at high risk of making a mistake. A player then makes a mistake. After the mistake, the player can either not be able to get highly aroused again and his performance will stay low, or his arousal can increase again and his performance will start to increase. Stress. My definition of stress. Stress is a mental state when a person is under a lot of pressure. A reference definition of stress. A pattern of negative physiological and psychological responses occurring in a situation where people perceive threats to their well-being, which they may be unable to meet. Eustress and de-stress. Eustress is the good form of stress. It can have positive effects on performance. This stress can increase motivation levels, skill levels, and focus, collectively increasing a player's performance. An example of this could be playing as part of a team. An individual may be getting stressed about playing as part of the team, and this could cause eustress. This would mean his skill levels and focus would increase, therefore benefiting his performance. De-stress. De-stress is a form of stress, which has the opposite effect of eustress. It affects the player's performance negatively. It can cause severe anxiety and nervousness, and this can cause a player to perform badly. An example of this could be a tennis player. A tennis player is so nervous before a final, it can cause him de-stress and he performs poorly. The 4 stages of stress. The first stage is where a situation is put upon an athlete which causes him stress. The second stage is when it is decided what type of stress should be placed, eustress or de-stress. The third is when the effects of the stress sink into the athlete. If the player has eustress, then it will increase his motivation and skill. If the player has de-stress, then it would increase nervousness towards the task ahead. The 4th stage. This is the outcome of stress, whether it did affect the performance positively or negatively. Sources of stress. There are 5 main sources of stress: internal, external, personal factors, occupational, and sport. Internal. This is where stress is developed from illness or something psychological, such as a past or current injury. These factors can increase in anxiety or lack of sleep. External. This is where the cause of stress is from the environment. It can be caused by many factors, including the weather and the crowd. Personal factors. This form of stress can be caused by the people that we are close to, such as parents, children, or partners. It can also be caused by personal factors such as money. Occupational. This stress is formed from your job. Having a job that you do not enjoy, or constantly getting shouted at, can cause occupational stress. It may also be that you are unemployed and you are unable to get a job that may cause this stress. Sport. There can be many factors inside a sport that can cause stress. It could be a recent loss of form, or not getting on with your teammates. The effect of stress on the body. When found in a stressful situation, your stress responses are activated. This is controlled by 2 parts of the nervous system: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic system. It is decided on what system should be used by the level of risk that is detected. The sympathetic system kicks in if there is a huge risk. This is known as the fight or flight response. This system can supply the body with enough energy to either stay at the situation and fight on, or run away. The sympathetic responses include the pupils dilate, heart rate increases, breathing rate increases, the blood is redirected to the limbs, digestion stops, slow metabolism, and decrease in saliva production. However, if the risk is lower, then the parasympathetic system kicks in. This works to relax the body. It does this by the following: it constricts the pupils, lowers the heart rate, breathing rate decreases, blood goes to all major organs, digestion resumes, increasing in metabolism, and increasing saliva production. Anxiety. A definition of anxiety is: anxiety is the result of an interaction between an individual and the environment. It is an emotional response to what has been placed on the individual due to the environment. There are 3 types of anxiety: state anxiety, trait anxiety, and somatic anxiety. State anxiety is a constant changing of mood, which is dependent on the situation a person is in. An example of this could be a tennis player. Going into the match, a player could be suffering from high levels of state anxiety. However, once the match actually starts, he may calm his nerves down. However, on a big point, such as a game point or match point, The anxiety may return. Trait anxiety. Trait anxiety is a behaviour where a person always feels threatened, even if they are in a situation when they shouldn't feel threatened. This type of anxiety is dependent on a person's traits. An example of this could be in a football match. A defender suffering from trait anxiety may feel he is threatened by an opponent in the box and may commit a foul and give away a penalty when there is no need to make the tackle. Somatic anxiety. This type of anxiety relates to the psychological changes that your body goes through during a high-pressure situation. This can increase breathing rate, heart rate and sweating. An example of this could be a player taking a penalty in the 90th minute to win the match. He may suffer from somatic anxiety and his heart rate may increase. There are three types of responses from anxiety: the cognitive response, the somatic response, and the behavioural response. The cognitive response is where you are so overwhelmed by the situation that you are unsure of what to do and become indecisive. An example of this could be a striker may be so nervous in the game he is unsure of whether to pass the ball or shoot, and ends up losing the ball. Another example could be a tennis player in the final is not sure what to do, whether to play a drop shot or hit the ball to the back of the court, and ends up missing the ball. The somatic response. This is where your body makes a number of physiological changes during a high pressure situation. A few examples of this could be a player's mouth going dry just before taking a penalty, or a player heavily sweating before the beginning of a final. The behavioural responses. The behavioural responses are patterns of behaviour while experiencing stress. A few examples of this are: during a football match a player may be biting his nails, or a tennis player before a final may start smoking to try and calm his nerves.